Thank you very much. It's a great privilege for me to introduce a big personality. I can say big personality in the field of financial sector. So I love to teach finance in corporate law also, banking also, insurance also. So I have a great opportunity to introduce a nice person in the field of banking sector. So I would like to introduce Naavi sir, who is popularly known as Na Vijay Shankar sir, who is born in Mysore, which is a very nice place. He had his early schooling in small towns of Karnataka, and then he moved to Mysore, where he had school at Mahajana Higher Secondary School, college education at Yuvaraja's College, and passed out of Mysore University as a postgraduate in physics from Manasa Gangotri in 1973. By that time, I think most of you people did not born. Naavi sir then joined Overseas Bank, where he worked in various senior positions until 1987 at different places in Karnataka and other states before he ventured into a private sector to build the next part of his career. After working his financial sector in different companies, Naavi sir developed an interest in cyber laws by 1998 when the first draft of the legislation in India was public. True to his character of sharing knowledge, Naavi sir started a portal on cyber law to discuss the provisions of the proposed legislation, which he rightly predicted would have a profound impact on the society. He also wrote what turned out to be the first book on cyber laws in India, titled as Cyber Laws for Every Netizen in India. Thus, Navi's efforts at cyber law education started in 1998, making him the pioneer of cyber law education in the country. In 2000, when the draft cyber law became a full-fledged act in the form of Information Technology Act 2000, Navi sir decided to start offering more formal education in cyber laws and started Cyber Law College as a virtual education center dedicated to cyber law education. The virtual courses were offered and marked the beginning of a new phase in his efforts to spread cyber law awareness. Recently, in December, Sir has authored an open letter to Honorable Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi, sir, urging him to put a complete ban on cryptocurrency and let India become a world leader as first country to ban it through a stringent legislation. Naavi sir discussed the menace of this currency and drew its analogy with drugs. So now I invite Naavi sir to deliver a lecture on this subject. Thank you one and all for giving me the opportunity to introduce such a nice person, Navi sir. Thank you very much, sir. Please, sir.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Navita. So, as I was explaining, my impression of Bitcoin actually started with the first Bitcoin conference held in India, which happened in Bangalore. I addressed that and spoke about the legality of Bitcoins. Of course, at that time, looking at it from the legal point of view, I said Bitcoin is, of course, legally recognized in India. But subsequently, with the effect of Bitcoin on the currency kind of projection they were trying to do, I have developed my own uh, views on Bitcoin, which may not be in tune with the majority opinion. But one thing is very certain, Bitcoin is a very fascinating, you can say, concept born out of this blockchain concept. And that's why in the slide you see it is as fascinating as a king cobra, but at the same time we have to actually better stay away from it because it is too dangerous to handle them. This is generally a description of how I look at Bitcoin. But otherwise, it is an enigma and we need to understand it. And I'm sure that all of you are interested in studying it further. What I present is my view. You are welcome to explore further on what is the impact of Bitcoin. So today I will discuss first the perception about what is Bitcoin. Then we will go into the technology of Bitcoin, briefly about the law of Bitcoin and the impact on the society. Now, when we look at Bitcoin, there is one school of thought to the left, which is actually the view of the Bitcoin founders, that they wanted Bitcoin to be considered as a currency which is decentralized and not regulated by any central authority. Like you have the legit currencies, rupee, which there is a central bank which has to regulate it, and it gives a guarantee that you can exchange it. Of course, when the currency system started, we had the gold standard, that is, you could always exchange currency for real gold, but subsequently the gold reserves were not 100%. Therefore, paper currency remained a paper currency, but still the sovereign guarantee is there that a particular currency can be used for legitimate business transactions or other financial transactions in a given country. And that backing is something which makes every currency associated with the sovereign state to which it represents. And we have the well-developed foreign currency market where currency of one country is exchanged to the currency of the other country, and depending upon the purchasing power of the currency in each country, maybe the relative values get determined. Now, Bitcoin, on the other hand, is supposed to be not regulated by any such governmental backing, which means that it is there, and tomorrow if you want to exchange it, there is no central authority to which you can go and exchange it. But still, people think that this is the better way because, in fact, some of the staunch supporters of Bitcoin say that because it is not associated with any country, it is actually insulated against the failure of any particular currency, which happens from time to time through devaluation, massive devaluation of the currency when the country goes bankrupt or something like that. So they feel that Bitcoin is actually better than the legit currency, but that is something which the people who are aware of monetary systems can argue. But Bitcoin is promoted as a currency by the central agency which has created Bitcoin. And in India and elsewhere, it is being promoted as an investment. In fact, people say that during Diwali time that instead of buying gold, why don't you buy Bitcoin? So it is an investment like any other gold. Investment in the sense that you buy and keep it, okay, wait for the price to escalate. Whereas if you are looking at it as a currency, you are really looking at it for transaction so that it may come in and go out, whereas investment means you just hold. Now, but both these things end up looking at Bitcoin as a currency. Now, that is one school of thought. The second school of thought from the technology people is that it is a derivative of what is called a blockchain technology. There is a technology concept called blockchain, and this is one of the use cases of that blockchain technology. Like you have Windows, which is the platform, and PowerPoint is a derivative of Windows platform. Bitcoin is a derivative of blockchain technology. Now, legally speaking, Bitcoin is nothing but an electronic document because it is constructed out of zeros and ones, binary. And to that extent, under the Information Technology Act, Section 4, because it is not otherwise excluded from the Act, it is recognized as an electronic document. Now, as an electronic document, it says something, and that something is what is referred to by people as currency. We will discuss this when we completely discuss the technology. Now, people like us, of course, have a different view in the sense that, okay, you are projecting Bitcoin as a currency, but where is the accountability for that currency? There is no central authority which knows what is happening, and we don't know who is using it. Because of this anonymity, Bitcoin, like any other cryptocurrency, is actually a digital black money. And secondly, the crime syndicate in the web space, whom we normally call as dark web, they use Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies as their legal tender. In fact, that is the reason why Bitcoin gets a lot of support, because if you kill Bitcoin or say cryptocurrencies together, then dark web may collapse. In fact, say, after all, for any economy to survive, there has to be money in it. If somebody is committing a crime, he commits the crime because there is money in that crime. If you say that there is no reward for crime, then probably he will think twice. Why should he commit a crime and take the risk of being found out and jailed, even if it is remote possibility in the internet world? Still, if the reward is not commensurate with the risk, people will not commit crimes. Now, if you take any ransomware, extortion, payments are always in bitcoins or other cryptocurrencies. The reason is that that money goes out of the general legit system. If a criminal asks you to send money to his bank account, wherever is the bank account, if the bank accounts are within the legit economic system, whether in India or Nigeria or in some Belarus or whatever is that, ultimately at least you can trace it to a particular uh, country and the banking system. There is at least a possibility that such kind of crimes can be curtailed. Whereas in this system of cryptocurrencies, nothing is possible in terms of preventing, providing a reward for cyber crimes. Despite all these things, we must say that we are still trying to understand the full impact of bitcoins. So it remains as an enigma to some extent, and we will look at it like that. But one thing we can say is Bitcoin has been developed like a cult, in the sense that the concept was actually initiated by a person who is identified as Satoshi Nakamoto. We don't know what is his real name, whether he is a Japanese or a US person. In all probability, he is not a Japanese. In all probability, he is a US citizen. He may be living even now under some other name. So this is completely a pseudonymous name to avoid any consequences of the Bitcoin activity. But anyway, there was a paper which was released somewhere in 2009 as a technology paper, and perhaps this person also developed an algorithm. He created a core foundation stock which we call as Genesis block. That is, he just created the first some millions of bitcoins, and out of which certain things have become the Genesis block. And then people started buying it at whatever value was available at that time, which was less than $1 kind of a thing. And gradually persons who had bought it started selling it to somebody else, or using it for buying drugs, buying illegal arms kind of a thing, and the transaction slowly spread. And the new bitcoins also got created through an activity which we recognize as mining, which arises as a sort of a reward for working towards creating a ledger of transactions. Okay, we will again explain this concept a little later. Now, having created this system, it was marketed as a decentralized and deregulated currency, and they have never changed this concept. When I first came across this, I was suggesting to them that we should use this technology, and perhaps the cryptocurrencies could be issued by the sovereign governments through various channels. For example, Reserve Bank of India, I think in Switzerland, they also found out a particular methodology by which a separate hardware chip was to be issued by the regulatory agency, and only people using that chip would be able to mine, and that chip would report every mining to the regulatory agency, so that in a way the cryptocurrency mining could be converted into minting of coins or printing of currencies, which is presently done by the government. So the cost of that printing could be reduced. Instead of that, it could be decentralized by people who are licensed to print crypto coins, with some kind of a reward given by the government itself, and the created cryptocurrencies could be handed over to the government. So that is one way by which you can bring a cryptocurrency system into the regular usage. Switzerland tried it, but I don't think they are pursuing it. Subsequently, Switzerland made bitcoins completely convertible into legit currency, so they are not pursuing this. In India also, at various points of time, we have been discussing whether it is possible to do like this. And uh, in fact, in the draft regulation which the government is considering, they wanted to keep a particular provision for government to issue cryptocurrencies. But remember that India is already having this virtual currency system where the bank balances have been converted into a digital form in the form of, let us say, your balances in Paytm, balances in other digital wallets, etc. So actually, if you want to make a transfer of legit money from one person to another person through UPI and other systems, we have got multiple tools of transfer of money. In fact, much more than in any other country. Even USA does not have this many tools for transfer of money from one person to another person. So I don't know. If you want to keep this cryptocurrency as a legit system, then it's a question of replacing our virtual banking system with bitcoins, or let us say somebody wanted to call it as Indian coin or Lakshmi coin or whatever is that. There is a government controlled cryptocurrency. But as a government controlled cryptocurrency, there is not much of a difference between virtual currency and this. If you say that only your virtual bank balance, which is recognized as legitimate bank balance, can be converted into this cryptocurrency, if you make that as a rule, then the biggest USP of Bitcoin as an anonymous currency holding will be not available to such a currency, and therefore the current market is unlikely to accept it as something new. They will say the government is only trying to avoid the printing cost of notes. Instead of that, they have come to this. But even that is not bad. But as I say, compared to the current virtual currency system, which is basically the bank balances which are there available for digital transfer, there would not be much of a difference. But the current Bitcoin system, as something which is not coming under any governmental coverage, as a peer-to-peer system, is developing itself as a kind of a cult, in the sense that all those people who are following or within this system, they swear by the Bitcoin or the other cryptocurrency, because for them it works. Say, for example, if you remember when this Ram Rahim was arrested, he had a big expanse of his, you can say, jurisdictional area in this, what was called perhaps ashram, where they were having some slips of paper with the initials of some administrator, which could be actually used as a currency within the system. And that is how these, in many clubs, plastic chips are used. As soon as you enter the club, you convert your legit currency into plastic chips within the premises. You may use it for playing games, or if there's a canteen inside, you can go and give it for canteen. You can always have a system within a system to make things easy. For example, if you don't have change, if somebody gives you a chocolate, and next time when you go to the same place, when you want to give a change, you can also give a chocolate. So this using of a cryptocurrency within the legit system is okay, but when this cult, which is acceptable within a small place, extends to somebody bringing that same chip or plastic chip to a neighboring shop and say, why don't you accept this? Then if he starts accepting and that acceptance grows beyond, then there will be some kind of an adverse impact on the regular system. Okay, so this is how Bitcoin is currently developing as a cult. But looking at it as purely from the view of people who have the stocks of Bitcoin for whatever reasons they acquired, you can see that currently a Bitcoin is having an exchangeable value of 14 lakhs 21,000. There is a international currency market which gives second by second value of this Bitcoin, real-time Bitcoin valuation. You can always look at it. And when I first started understanding Bitcoin way back in 2009, for the first time in India, the value was around 65,000 Indian rupees. In Bangalore itself, there were people who would take cash and give you Bitcoin, or you could give your Bitcoin and collect cash. There would be a difference, like in the foreign exchange. They used to make a commission out of that. Something like if you want to sell, you will be given 60,000. If you want to buy, then you will have to pay 65,000. 5,000 rupees is the difference. That kind of an exchange value system was prevalent. In Bangalore itself, there were several people who were providing such services. Now that 65,000 now has become 14 lakhs 21,500 in about 12 years. So it is substantial, you can say, improvement in the value. There is no doubt that looking at purely an investment kind of a criteria, if somebody had bought some Bitcoins at that time, they would have been well rewarded, provided they can sell this 14 lakhs 21,000 today in the market and reconvert it into rupees. Then the question comes whether the government would like to tax it, whether it's a capital gain. All those issues will come, because even if you look at Bitcoin as an electronic document, as an asset, if you sell the asset and make money, it comes under our Indian laws as capital gains, and it is not a real estate, so you cannot take any other exemptions and other things. It is pure capital gain, a speculative profit which has to be taxed. Okay, so that is one. Second, this value of Bitcoin is increasing, but the question is whether it is real or whether it is imaginary. It is real to the extent there can be a buyer who can buy it, if not at 14 lakh 21,000, at least 14 lakhs, keeping the balance as a commission for the intermediaries or something. So there is some value. So to that extent, it is realistic. In fact, now that the value has gone that big, the units of Bitcoin has become more relevant. Normally, the lowest unit of a Bitcoin is called a Satoshi, which is actually 100,000 1 divided by 7 zeros, 1 crore kind of a thing. Okay. And therefore, if 14 lakhs is the value of the particular Satoshi, then I think 1 0, there is a problem there. 1 Satoshi can be 0.01. So this is a sub value of the unit. That is fine. But why this value is increasing is that the maximum stock of Bitcoins by the system is limited to 21 million. Therefore, there can be no more than 21 million Bitcoins in the world, and therefore, as time passes, the value of Bitcoin is keeping on increasing, and that is the innovativeness of the people who created the system. Okay. Now, there are two ways of acquiring Bitcoin. One is, of course, creating our own Bitcoin, which is the most fascinating part. The second is, of course, selling and purchasing. Today, convertibility is available for Bitcoin into other cryptocurrencies and also to legal legacy currencies. Japan, South Korea, Switzerland, they provide almost free convertibility to the legit currency, as if Bitcoin is a legal tender. And several other countries actually consider Bitcoin as a sort of a legal tender for buying and selling commodities and goods. Therefore, it is in circulation in a certain way, even if government is not prepared to exchange it to the legacy currencies. Now, at present, there are about more than 5,300 cryptocurrencies, and most of the time, one cryptocurrency can be easily converted into another cryptocurrency. So, if the government of India bans Bitcoin alone, all the people will convert it into other cryptocurrencies. So, unless we ban all the cryptocurrencies together, cryptocurrencies will not vanish. Even then, if a few governments like Switzerland or Japan are willing to convert cryptocurrencies into their currencies, all the people who are having cryptocurrencies and want to use it in India, if Indian government bans, they may convert it into Swiss francs and then bring that back as if it is a remittance in Swiss francs. That is how um, this cryptocurrency becomes something like a hawala transaction, because unlike actual hawala where somebody has to carry a trunk load of cash from one country to another country or have agents in different countries to act on some instructions, coded instructions, in the case of cryptocurrencies, you can transfer cryptocurrencies from one country to another country just like sending an email. Therefore, you don't even require hawala agents. To that extent, this is the best suited system for illegal transfer of money. So whether it is used for terrorism, whether it is used for drugs or illegal, you can say arms, there is no system better than the cryptocurrency system today, and that is why it is extremely popular in the underworld. Okay. Now, from an economic point of view, most of you, if you have studied the Indian financial system, you can see that the total market capitalization of these 5,392 cryptocurrencies, which are fungible in one way or the other, balance in one currency is equivalent to balance in another currency, they are today estimated to be around 573 billion US dollars. Now, if you try to convert it into Indian context, this comes to around 40 lakh 17,860 crores. Now, if you take the money supply in India, which is M3, which is currency with the public, demand deposits and time deposits, everything put together, we have got 19,092,000 crores, 19 lakh 92,000 crores, which is about half of the market capitalization of cryptocurrencies. Now, if you take only currency with the public, which is about 5 lakh crores, which is about 1/8 of the global market capitalization, which means that even a small infusion of cryptocurrencies into the Indian market and conversion of that into, let us say, Indian rupees will flood the market with an currency which will have its own inflationary effect beyond 60 to 70%. If Bitcoin is legalized today, inflation of close to 70 to 80% is expected because of the increased money supply of the with the Indians. So individually, Bitcoin itself constitutes 62% of the global market capitalization. The second best is Ethereum, which is around 68 billion. There are other different kinds of cryptocurrencies. The values of that is may vary, and in terms of market capitalization, also it may vary. Now, in terms of usage, in many countries, there are Bitcoin ATMs. About 71 countries are supposed to have Bitcoin ATMs as of today. USA itself has got 10,543 locations, Canada about 1,000, UK about 246, and many countries in Europe and some in South America, Asia, Australia, including Singapore, they all have Bitcoin ATMs. This Bitcoin ATM is a system where you can go there and then you can deposit cash and then Bitcoin will be credited to your account. Or if you have a Bitcoin, you can call that Bitcoin into the ATM and withdraw it by way of cash. There was an attempt to have one such ATM in Bangalore some time back, but the police here did not allow. They recognized that this Bitcoin ATM is nothing but a Hawala agent, and they seized that Bitcoin ATM and did not permit it to be set up. But as of today, my information is that there is one Bitcoin ATM functioning in Gurugram, and I have pointed it out to some police authorities, but I don't know if anybody will take note of that. If that ATM is prepared to accept deposits in rupees and convert it into Bitcoin, that is the easiest way black money can be exchanged. Maybe that's why I say, if you want to sustain an agitation against the government like this farmers agitation, and if you want to pay them money, people from Canada who are supporting this farmers agitation can always transfer the money through Bitcoin, and through this local ATM which is very near Haryana, within the state of Haryana, perhaps Indian cash can be drawn and distributed. I'm not sure that it is not happening already. As a person who is watching the crime scenario, I always try to speculate what could happen. And if it has come to my mind, obviously criminals also would be thinking in a similar way. And probably this Bitcoin ATM transactions in Haryana, if it is analyzed for the last 1 week, 10 days, you may find some criminal links to the people who are funding this agitation. In fact, some time back, similar doubts were there in Kashmir in terms of terrorists, because you know that Pakistan was transferring printed cash across Indian borders in Malda, West Bengal, where people used to say that bundles of cash would be thrown from the other side to the Indian side. Now, if Bitcoin is to be used, all such things are not required. You can transfer it like an email. Okay, so that much of convertibility is available. Because of all these things, Bitcoin today is acting like a currency, and we must accept that it is possible to use it like a currency. There are some, in fact, Amazon wanted to accept Bitcoin as one of the legal tenders, and in fact, there was one person in Bangalore who gave a marriage invitation in which he said gifts are accepted only in Bitcoins. Okay, so that is the extent of, you can say, adoption, at least in this cult of Bitcoins. Okay. Now, why is this so popular? Now we look at the little bit of underlying technology. The underlying technology for Bitcoins is the blockchain. Okay. This blockchain as a technology has some interesting use cases. One of which I consider is like voters list. Say, if you want to eliminate fake voters, say nobody other than the neighbor of a particular person knows whether a person exists in that location or not. So if you make a voters list as a blockchain and get the authentication of the people themselves, probably people who are not existing will not get the support. Therefore, the blockchain becomes more reliable. But whether this blockchain as a technology, I will explain what is blockchain, is ideal for financial transactions is something which is questionable. One aspect of blockchain, we also talk in terms of what is called smart contracts. It's a derivative of this blockchain, which has some definite use cases. A smart contract is a kind of a contract where execution of payments following certain milestones are embedded into the contract for automatic execution. Okay, so in a way it is like artificial intelligence working behind the scene. So there is some relevance for blockchain as a technology and smart contracts, but not necessarily for the financial transactions. Okay, now Bitcoin is actually, it originates as a reward in a game. The game is played under this blockchain system, the idea is that at any point of time, some people are using bitcoins, buying, selling, using it somewhere. So transactions are happening. Now, when these transactions have to be listed and a ledger has to be prepared, somebody has to do it. And in this blockchain technology, the public create a ledger of transactions. And for doing this work, they are given a certain reward. Of course, you cannot give reward to everybody who just makes a list of some transactions. So the reward is only given upon solving of a particular puzzle. And originally, when Bitcoin started, whoever solves that puzzle would get 50 Bitcoins. And now, as per the algorithm's inherent condition, every 4 years, this reward would come down. Uh, it will be half of the earlier one. So presently, if there is a successful creation of a transaction ledger which is approved by the majority, then 6.25 bitcoins will be added to the particular person. If I am successful in creating a ledger and that ledger is accepted by the community, I will get 6.25 bitcoins. So that is how the initial bitcoins originate. That is what we call as mining. Okay, mining is nothing but playing the game of creating a ledger in whatever, under whatever rules is stated, and only one person who is the first person to complete the puzzle, he will be considered as a winner and he will be given 6.25 bitcoins. Okay, now in financial transaction, for example, if I transfer, if A, let us say, pays 1,000 rupees to B, likewise C pays to D, D pays to somebody else, there are hundreds of such transactions. Now, each of these transactions, for example, you transfer money from your bank account to me, your bank has to authenticate that transfer and it has to come to my bank account if we are maintaining accounts in different banks. If it is in the same bank, then money has to be taken out from your account and transferred to my account, and that is done by the authority called the banking authority, who may be a clerk, who may be an officer, or whatever is that. Okay, so I will take questions maybe when we come to the end of each section. Perhaps one or two slides I will complete, and then we'll take the questions before we go to the next section. Okay, so in a normal financial transaction, if A pays rupees 1,000 by transfer to B, somebody has to authenticate that it was only A who gave this instruction. He had 1,000 rupees with him, and now he wants it to give it to B, and B is also identified as the person who A intends, and then 1,000 rupees has to be credited to him. This transaction is done by the clerk and the officer of the bank. Now, can this transaction be completed without a central authority such as the bank, if you consider bank as the central authority in this limited transaction? Do we need a bank at all? Can A just pay to B and then A says I am paying you 1,000, and why can't B just accept, oh, I become richer by 1,000 rupees? If all the people around me say, in front of all the people, A says I am paying 1,000 rupees to B, and B says I accept, then all the people surrounding me are witnesses to that. That is one way by which the society can say that, okay, I recognize a transfer of money from A to B. So tomorrow if B goes to another person, sees and says, I want to buy some grains from you, and you know that yesterday I got 1,000 rupees from A, from that I will give you 500 rupees. Now, because that grain merchant is aware of this transaction, he may say, okay, I understand, but let everybody again confirm that you have passed 500 rupees to me. So let us have all the people together and you make a statement that I paid 500 rupees to this grain merchant. This is looks perhaps theoretically feasible, but obviously not a practical way of doing things. Now, look at this kind of a situation. This is how blockchain works, the principle, looking at it on the lighter side. So if there is a buffalo and everybody says, this is a cow, this is a cow, this is a cow, and In a traditional authentication system, we need an expert to come and certify whether this is a cow or a buffalo. But in the blockchain system, if a majority of the person do not disagree, then it is agreed that this is a cow. So you have transactions like that. This is essentially the decentralized, no central authority system of authentication which blockchain wants to adopt. And if it is adopted to the financial transaction, as I told you, if a person makes a declaration, I am giving you 1,000 rupees, now who knows whether this person has that much of value of 1,000 rupees with him or not to give to somebody else, and whether that person can use it as a payment system to somewhere else. These are all things which are only accepted by the community. If the community is a closed community, so it is fine. The closed community accepts a statement like that and agrees, and they can remember that this 1,000 rupees was given yesterday. So if you say I want to sell 500 rupees or use 500 rupees, everybody agrees. But how can it function in a banking system or a general system? It is completely a ridiculous expectation that blockchain system can be used in banking and other financial transactions. There are many banks in India, including ICICI Bank, which wants to use blockchain technology in trade and other things. Sometimes the only way you can do that is if there are 100 officers in the bank, instead of one officer alone being assigned to authenticate a transaction, if you say all the 100 people, any one of them can approve, then it can work. That is like a private blockchain. Private blockchain may work where you are trying to expand the number of people who can authenticate a transaction. But as a public blockchain, which Bitcoin is, where approval of a transaction is done by some Tom, Dick, and Harry, that is something which the legit system will not be able to accept, and that is the issue which makes this system slightly like it is not just an enigma, it is just a creation out of thin air. Now if there are any questions, let us have the questions, then we will continue. Any questions? Somebody wanted to raise a question?
Good morning, sir.
Yeah.
This is Rashmi Pandey. Sir, I have two questions. The first question is with relation to what do you think is the relationship between this cryptocurrency and demonetization which happened, and do you think that this economy has affected demonetization in any way? And sir, also you mentioned that there are several countries which can do illegal funding for creating anti-national activities in a particular country. So what do you think is the intelligence infrastructure India has presently for that with respect to this?
Okay, now let us first look at demonetization. See, normally when we talk of demonetization of currency, we are trying to replace the existing hold of currencies with different people and want it to be substituted with another set of new currencies. So, large value currencies are demonetized, and all people who have that are asked to go to the centralized authority and surrender their stock of these large currency notes, and then exchange it with whatever else is available today. So government is not saying that you will lose the money. Government only wants to take a fresh stock of the currency with the public, and that is a normal demonetization. In case somebody is having unaccounted money, they will have some difficulty in accounting for it. Otherwise, regular people have no problem. Okay, when demonetization happen, except the physical inconvenience of going to the bank, exchanging it, kind of a thing, or there are cases where some people forgot some notes which were there hidden somewhere in the house, and they might have lost a few exchanges because they were not able to exchange it within a month. A genuine person is not affected adversely by demonetization. Okay, now when Indian demonetization happened, this Bitcoin technology was also there. So it was possible to convert the black money into Bitcoin, and in which case the holder of the physical black money got Bitcoins, and somebody bought this physical cash, and he went to the bank, whatever exchange was given, 20,000 per day or 5,000 per day. They engaged the services of a number of people, and in each person's name exchange was made. In fact, at that time the government said Aadhaar number has to be given, and within the bank, if a list of people yesterday have given their Aadhaar numbers and exchange whatever was the limit, I think it was 20,000 if I remember correct. Next day, the same bank will use the same list and say that all these people came again today, these are the Aadhaar numbers, they gave 20,000 rupees and exchanged it. Or sometimes one bank manager exchanged this list with another bank manager. So all the people whose Aadhaar numbers were there in one bank, next day they were deemed to have gone to another bank. So these agents who were converting this black money to white money were able to get all this money from the banking system, and the cooperative banks in particular were very easily amenable, because most of the cooperative banks, you know, are controlled by politicians, and that is one of the reasons why almost all the black money got converted. Now, had this conversion to bitcoins was not possible, perhaps the people who had that ability, who had black money and who had the ability to convert it into Bitcoin, they would have found it more difficult to regularize their black money holding. So I feel that is one of the links between the demonetization and the Bitcoin. Okay. Any other clarification further? Is it okay? Does it make sense?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other question? Say in terms of
Akash,
yeah, tell me.
Sir, Akash has asked one question. Akash, can you repeat your question which you have written in the chat box?
Yes, sir. I have a question that as you have discussed in your slide as well, that there are many countries which are using the cryptocurrencies, and they not only using but even promoting the same through the ATMs, through allowing the ATMs and other such kind of means, like the USA and other European countries. So, sir, my question is that you have also highlighted how it is going to impact the country's economic condition in terms of inflation and other things. Then how these countries are protecting their economy from such concern, and also if there are so many concerns with respect to cryptocurrency, whether it is hawala transactions or likewise, then are they ignoring such kind of concern, or they have came out with particular mechanism or process to counter such concerns? And if you can just highlight if you are aware of such mechanism or process which they have adopted, then if you can tell about that, and also whether such mechanism or processes can be adopted or replicated in India. And second question that I have is with respect to the ledger system that you have mentioned, that it is kind of imperfect. It is kind of imperfect, as like there is public who authenticate the transaction. However, it has been well documented the ledger system with respect to the blockchain is having almost 100% perfection to the authentication of that particular transaction. It has been well documented that they are very much true, and they are very much can be adopted in other fields as well. And it has been also been replicated not only in the financial sector but in other sectors as well. So can you highlight on that once again as well, with respect to same, how it has been adopted?
One thing, have you heard of Bitcoin forks? Okay, blockchain fork. I will come to it towards the end. Okay. Now, if you say it is documented 100% kind of a thing, then why should fork happen in a blockchain? Okay. I suppose you must be aware of it, so I will leave that there and then explain it towards the end of the thing. Second, the impact on the economy may depend upon the size of the economy also, and relative size of the Bitcoin transactions to that. Probably the impact of the bitcoins to a US market may be different from impact of the bitcoins to the Indian market, but otherwise in principle both remains the same. If some countries are legitimizing it, because we are talking of corruption here, okay, if the politician is having some bitcoins with him, will he try to ban bitcoins? He will not. See, today, just as Bitcoin can be used as black money for terrorist operations, funding, and other things, it can also be used for corruption. So, if you want to give a bribe to a government official, what best than to send him bitcoins? You don't have to carry it. There is no security system which will frisk you in the either in the suitcases which Harshad Mehta had to carry or whatever is that. So corruption actually thrives because of the Bitcoin. If that corruption is at the highest level, then you will not have any regulations which will prevent this. So when we are trying to oppose cryptocurrencies, we are actually opposing the corruption in the country. And that is where politicians are not able to cross the deadline because everybody is corrupt in the government system. Every bureaucrat may be corrupt. Even the judiciary may be corrupt. How will you get a measure of reform which hurts the system of corruption which is so well entrenched in an economy? That is one of the reasons. Beyond that, principle which I am trying to say, that if all the legit currency, let us say all dollars, however billion or trillion dollar currencies are there, if it is converted into Bitcoin, there is no physical currency of dollars in any of the banking system. You tell me, does it affect the US system or not? You may say that it is practically not going to happen, but theoretically, if you say that, for example, in India, all bank depositors convert their bank deposits, withdraw it, and convert it into Bitcoin, what happens? People will have Bitcoins in their email account or wherever they store. Banks will not have any cash with them. The cash gets transferred to somebody who has sold the Bitcoin, which may be an international smuggler or some other person. So the entire Indian banking system, time deposits and demand deposits, goes into private hands. Now, how can that such a system be acceptable to an economy? It doesn't happen. Okay, you, as long as Bitcoin is only 0.01% of the total system, you can tolerate it because you may not perceive the difference in impact. But if you think that you can allow this small amount of corruption of our system, it will not take much time for this to grow big like a cancer. That is why I say this is like a drug menace. Everybody who starts on drug starts with something to say that I will try it once, okay? But that once becomes an addiction. Likewise, if you accept a 0.001% of our economy to be corrupted into Bitcoin because we feel, okay, some 1,000 crores in banking system gets transferred to Bitcoin, nothing is going to happen. But that 1,000 crores will become 2,000 crores, for 10,000 crores, and very soon become a lakh of crores. And then you will start feeling the pinch, and it will be a time, it is like a nuclear reaction, chain reaction. You cannot control it beyond a particular point. If we are intelligent, we have to stop it before it reaches that criticality stage. Okay. Now, if other countries have not recognized this, I am not saying that whatever Japan does actually has to be better than what we think. I don't. Japanese Prime Minister has been once held corrupt, and I think he was even arrested and kind of a thing. Okay, so corruption is there everywhere. It is there in America. It is there in UK. It is there in every other country. Therefore, there is no reason why we should think that these countries have no better. You think over whatever I'm discussing today until I complete my whole this thing, then take a view on your own. I don't want to say that you have to be influenced by what I am saying. I am only trying to place my views. You can accept it or reject it. We will discuss it again towards the end of the session. Okay, we'll come back to that impact later on. Now, coming back to the technology, for this particular Bitcoin technology uses the encryption system, which is the asymmetric crypto system. It uses hash and together this blockchain technology. Let us see briefly what these things mean. You are aware of symmetric key encryption, where one key is used for encryption, the same key is used for decryption. Asymmetric key encryption is an encryption system where two keys are used, one for encryption, another for decryption. We are aware of this because in India we have adopted digital signature system since the year 2000. So most of this is child's play as far as we are concerned, as far as the knowledge is concerned. I'm sure most of you have studied Information Technology Act, so I suppose you are familiar with this. So symmetric encryption, there is a plain text which a sender wants to send it to a receiver. What he will do is he will use a key, encrypt it. There is a cipher text. Cipher text is transmitted. So anybody who steals this intervening transmission, he will only see cipher text so that the confidentiality is not breached. Then when the receiver receives the cipher text, he uses the key and gets it decrypted. But in symmetric key encryption, these two keys are same. So the sender, after sending the encrypted document to the receiver, has to somehow ensure that the symmetric key is there with both the people. So he may have to send it again through a different channel. If this goes through email, this physically he has to transfer. And if this also is transmitted through internet, then symmetric key system is easy to break. Asymmetric encryption system therefore adopts a system where sender will use one key for encryption. This key need not be available to the receiver for decryption. The receiver will actually use some other key and decrypt it. These two keys, one is called the public key and another is called the private key. They are related to each other so that whatever is encrypted with one of this key is decryptable by the other key and vice versa. And asymmetric encryption system is good for internet transactions because there is no key transfer in the internet. Only the document is transferred, key is not transferred. So that is being used in our digital signature system. The other concept which is used is the concept of hashing. Hashing is an algorithm which takes the electronic document, which is nothing but zeros and ones, which is a number, and that number is subjected to various mathematical operations to arrive at what is called a hash digest or a hash value, which is unique to the original binary document. So given a particular document, the hash value is always the same. If you are using a particular algorithm, there are different algorithms. When you use one particular algorithm, MD5 or SHA-1 or something, you always get a consistent hash value. And this hash value is a very small file, 128 bits or 160 bits, irrespective of whether the original document was 1 GB or 100 GB. Okay. So, and another thing is, even if there is a very small change in the original document, small means one dot comma, then there will be a substantial change in the end hash value, so that at a glance you can immediately say, if you have got two copies of an electronic document, if you calculate the hash values of both the things, you will immediately be able to say that this document is same as the other document or there is a difference. You may not be able to say what is the difference, but you will be able to say there is a difference. That is the value of hash algorithm. But hash values are which we use are one-way hash algorithms. That is, from a document you can calculate a hash value, but from a hash value you cannot recreate the original document. So this hash value system is also used in our digital signature system. Now, what is a blockchain? Now, blockchain is a technology platform, and a block is a set of transactions which happens during a specified time period. Typically, one block in Bitcoin block may consist of up to around 500 transactions. It is actually limited by the block size and the time. Okay, every 10 minutes or so, the block is closed to some extent, and the total block size today is somewhere, I think, 2 MB in the Bitcoin chain. So every 10 minutes, one block has to get closed. And how is it closed? And once it is closed, that block is added to the previous block, and that is why we call it as a blockchain. In this block, what is done is all the transactions which happened in the last 10 minutes will be listed. Okay, so in an electronic form, it is a ledger, and it will say so and so paid so and so. Now, the so and so is not the name of the persons. They will all be represented by a number, which is actually a hash value of their Bitcoin wallet. So the blockchain doesn't contain the names of people. It only contains a pseudonymous number. Now it says so and so paid so much, so and so, so many Bitcoins, something like that, that you have got 200, 300 such transactions. Then you can calculate a hash value for that document. Before calculating the hash value, the game is you should add one random number, which is called a nonce value, and you add that random number and then calculate the hash value. You will get a hash value. The winner of this game is the one who creates a hash value which is the lowest. Okay, and there will be a target hash value, and it should be less than that target hash value. How do you get this? What you have to do is this, what we call as this random magic number nonce value. If one number doesn't work out, you have to take it out, put another number, and then work out. It is like the brute force attack on breaking of encryption. So you try millions of combinations of this magic number, and maybe you may be able to hit the jackpot, and that person will get the 6.25 Bitcoins as a successful person. Okay, so this is what is called the mining. Now, to authenticate this, what happens is, okay, whenever a Bitcoin transaction takes place, from the central server, a broadcast is made to about 1 lakh people who are called the nodes. Okay, now each of these node will receive this information, and they will create a ledger. They will put a nonce value, they will create a hash value, and they will rebroadcast it. This is the hash value I got, something like this. Now whoever is able to hit the target, then the block gets closed. He is perhaps made the winner, and that is called a successful block. It gets added to the blockchain, and the successful block will also have the name of the successful person who has mined it, and the identity of that 6.25 Bitcoins, and that becomes the extended block. Like this block goes on extending. This is the puzzle which is called mining. To do this mining, one has to install a mining software, and he should use his computer to process, and like a brute force attack, do as much of hashing as possible. Put a number, hash, put a number, hash, kind of it. And sometimes, since individually it is not possible to do this, people try to pool their resources, and they create what is called a pool, and in the pool they try to solve this puzzle and then share the spoils. Okay, now this Bitcoin has to be credited somewhere, and that place where it is credited, that account is called the Bitcoin wallet, and from there he can try to transfer it to somebody else. Okay, this Bitcoin wallet is like a software. Okay, it stores the Bitcoins. When we say it stores the Bitcoins, it only stores what is the public key of a particular Bitcoin. Each Bitcoin will have a representation of a public key, and that public key is stored here. That public key can be decrypted only by a person who is holding the private key, and the private key is that of the person who is the owner of the Bitcoin. So the miner's private key is used first to actually encrypt, and then that becomes the identity of the Bitcoin. It gets into the wallet. The wallet itself is perhaps represented like a hash value, which may say that this belongs to a certain person. In fact, wallet may carry the identity like an email. When you register an email, to the email service provider, you say what is your name and address. But the email ID with which you send a mail to me, I don't know whether that name which you have used there is correct or not. But the email service provider should know your correct name. Likewise, in the case of Bitcoin wallets, the wallet issuing business, they may collect some information from you. In fact, Indian exchanges, they are saying that they will do KYC before a wallet is issued. But anyway, that's why they say government need not be worried. We will have a KYC done for this. But internationally, nobody does any KYC. So sitting in India, you can buy a Bitcoin wallet, you can create a wallet account somewhere else abroad. So you can transfer your Bitcoin there. So it doesn't go through the any of the KYC requirements of India, and therefore that anonymity can be maintained. So this Bitcoin wallet keeps a record of incoming and outgoing Bitcoins in that particular account, and that is how the Bitcoin system works. Okay. Frauds are common here, though you can say that so in demat accounts also we keep the shares as a demat representation. Now here this Bitcoin doesn't even have the shape of the coin which you normally see. It actually is another number. There are different kinds of wallets which you can keep on the computer, wallets you can keep on say a USB key, like hardware wallets. You can even keep it on mobiles. So there are various kinds of securities which you can also put to these wallets. But ultimately, every Bitcoin is represented by a public key figure number, and only the owner who has the private key can exercise his control on that, and therefore that is how ownership is managed. Okay. And even the wallet which contains the name of the person, how many wallets, how many Bitcoins are there, etc., that is also created like a hash value. So there is no identity of any individual which is reflected there. This is what you are seeing on the screen now is something which you see if you are having a wallet account. The wallet address, which is called the Bitcoin address, is like a hash value. It may be there as a QR code, and the wallet will have the details of how many you have received, how many you have sent, etc. There may be details of transactions and so on. An account is kept in the wallet. Okay. So whenever money has to be transferred, you should know the destination wallet number. If you give that destination wallet number, your Bitcoin, like an email, will go and sit there. It will look like an NEFT transfer. Originally, when Bitcoin was system came up, they said that these intermediaries in the banking system are charging commission, and we want to avoid that commission. Bitcoin, there is no commission, you just transfer it. But nowadays, it is so happening that the mining is becoming almost an impossibility. Therefore, if you want somebody to create a ledger, you have to pay them some service charges. So most of the time, these transfers and transactions also carry a transaction fee even in the Bitcoin, so that original advantage of no charge has been lost. Okay. Now, I was talking about this Bitcoin forks. Okay. What we mean by Bitcoin forks is that normally when a Bitcoin transaction is broadcast to the nodes, now all the nodes are now aware that A transferred one Bitcoin to B. Now that public knowledge is considered as authentication in the blockchain methodology. But suppose out of this 1 lakh people, a majority of the people say instead of A transfers one Bitcoin to B, if they say A transfers one Bitcoin to C and 50,000 people say yes, 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 now that becomes a valid transaction in the Bitcoin. Now when simultaneously two sets of transactions seem to authenticate a conflicting situation, we say there is a fork. That is, one set of people are saying that you have spent money in Amazon. Another set of this thing, out of the 500 things which you have collected, let us say a couple of things are not there in the second block, but more number of people actually accept that, then that becomes the dominating fork. Now, whichever chain is longer, that gets added to the main block, and thereafter this supplementary thing which was a short chain, it gets discarded. So there are possibilities where authentication by one set of people can get rejected and another set of people may take over. There is a speculation that there is a cartel in Bitcoin system. If more than 50% of the node owners approve a particular kind of transaction, that gets approved, so there could be various kinds of frauds. So that is where we say that there is a possibility of frauds. In fact, it is one such fork, which is a hard fork, which has not been able to reverse, which has created a new currency called Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Gold, Bitcoin SV. These are forks which has come from the main Bitcoin. Sometimes these forks were purposely done to improve the system. A new algorithm was introduced like that. But remember, while the Bitcoin is 14 lakhs, Bitcoin cash value is 19,316. Therefore, sometimes one has to be very careful what is the Bitcoin he is buying. Okay. Now this is about technology. Let me briefly talk about the legal aspects. As I told you, legally Bitcoin is an electronic document. Therefore, it is recognized as a paper document under Section 4 of Information Technology Act. Now, people want to give an imaginary value to that. Nobody can prevent it. Anybody can say that it is valued at 14 lakhs, 15 lakhs or something like that, because there is nobody who is guaranteeing it. If you think it is 14 lakhs and pay 14 lakhs, it is your wish. Okay. But the problem is calling it as a currency is the one which is objectionable. Otherwise, Bitcoin is just an electronic document like this. It doesn't look like the coin which we normally see in any publication or article kind of a thing. Okay. Now, what this contains, as I told you, the block size, who was the successful miner, and the keys of various transactions. Because every block contains all the previous transactions, people say you cannot manipulate it. The security of the blockchain is that if I want to change a transaction which happened yesterday, then all the blocks which have already been taken note of, they get disallowed. Therefore, you cannot make a change in the past. But that means that every person in the node has to have a full copy of the block. In fact, today Bitcoin block size is about 140 GB. So from the beginning to today, if you want to keep all the blocks in every transaction, every person has to keep 140 GB, and downloading and uploading itself is a problem. So there people are trying to find alternative methods to say only we will keep the last 8 blocks, last 10 blocks kind of a thing. But otherwise also, as a principle, blockchain technology keeps duplicating the transactions. If you are using it, let us say in a trade transaction, let us say there are 10 levels in that. Money has moved from 1 to the number 10. Now you are broadcasting it to, let us say, 500 or 1,000 officers of ICICI Bank because you want to use blockchain. Then all these 1,000 people will have the entire list from 1 to 100 transactions. Whereas in the current legacy system, there will be only one copy of this transaction, and only the people who are authorized to authenticate that will visit that ledger and then approve. The total data size which comes into existence because of the blockchain system is simply stupendous. It is a waste of resources. That is one as far as the technology is concerned. Now, coming back to this use of Bitcoin as a currency, under Section 22 of the Reserve Bank of India Act, the bank shall have the sole right to issue bank notes. Okay, if you consider bank notes as the epitome of currency, it means that only RBI has got the right to issue notes, nobody else. Therefore, to call Bitcoin as a currency is an offense. to use Bitcoin as a commodity, like a barter system, you may be slightly outside the legal gamut, and it may be possible to say, just like selling a commodity for whatever price the buyer is willing to buy is my right. You can sell an electronic document. I can sell this PowerPoint presentation. If you want to buy for 100 rupees, I can give it. If another person wants to buy it for 1,000 rupees, I can give it. That is a perceived value as far as you are concerned for the electronic document. So that cannot be prevented as long as I don't consider this PowerPoint is a currency. Okay. Bitcoin people are making the mistake of calling this electronic document as a currency, and that is where the legal issues will come. Section 58B of the Reserve Bank of India Act also has penalties which says that if anybody advertises or makes a statement which is false in many material, false in the sense that this is not a currency, I am trying to say this is a currency, such persons may face an imprisonment of up to 3 years. This is cognizable if Reserve Bank of India takes into account. So the law recognizes this as an electronic document, but projecting it as a currency is an offense and it is punishable. So otherwise, if you want to transfer it like a property, law doesn't come in the way. But here there is another question. You know that in all property transfers, there is a principle that no person can transfer a title better than what he himself has. That is, if I have got a stolen gold jewelry and I sell it to you, then if I am a thief, I cannot transfer proper title to you even if you have paid consideration. Tomorrow if police come and ask you, you have to return that stolen goods to the police, whereas you may still have a claim on me for cheating or whatever is that. This is true of all properties other than negotiable instruments, where there can be a holder in due course. Okay. Now, as long as Bitcoin is not a holder in due course, every transfer of Bitcoin is subject to the defects of the title of the previous person, which means that if the previous person was a person who had acquired it as a criminal proceeds, then there was a defective title in the Bitcoin and that gets transferred and it becomes money laundering. If you know the history of Bitcoins, if most of the Bitcoins are used by criminals, and even with ransomware, somebody raises some 50 million US dollars worth of Bitcoins, what happens to that? That criminal will again put it into circulation. So most of the Bitcoins which people buy in the exchanges, they could have a tainted past. And if any person from the minor to me, okay, if it has passed to 100 people, if any one of them had used Bitcoin for an illegal purpose, the Bitcoin which is in my hands is having a tainted past, and therefore it is an illegal possession. It is part of the money laundering. Okay, that is the legal issue. As far as anonymity is concerned, some people say that Bitcoin chain is public and therefore there is it is not really anonymous, but actually because every transaction is recorded with a public key, private key kind of a concept or hash value, it is actually not technically easy to identify any owner of Bitcoin, and that is actually the attraction of Bitcoin. So it is impossible to prove the ownership because there is no KYC kind of a thing. So it is a perfect digital black money. So when crimes happen in Bitcoins, it is very difficult, first of all, to trace. And even if it is traced, I am sure courts will find it very difficult to accept evidence that a Bitcoin is owned by some XYZ. Though from the investigative point of view, we sometimes say that you can identify the owner of a Bitcoin from the transactions. That is, if a person has used it, say, to buy something in Amazon, then through that I can find out that this person was the owner of the Bitcoin, because what he bought in Amazon was perhaps some goods which were delivered to a physical address and so on. But how much of that will stand in a court of law, we do not know. Therefore, if the government wants to regulate this, they don't actually need a separate law which they are trying to draft actually now. Even the ITA 2000 has got many provisions. For example, under section 4, you can derecognize a cryptocurrency. or under section 1 subsection 4 you can say that this kind of a currency is like promissory note is outside the provisions of ITA 2000. This also can be kept outside the ITA 2000. Criminal penalties can be introduced. So ITA 2000 itself can be used to regulate this. Now, Supreme Court unfortunately came up with its own judgment, which was actually something. You're all law students, so I don't want to say anything against the Supreme Court, but I am completely intrigued by this judgment. One thing is you should all read this judgment because it is like Bitcoin is a fascinating story. This judgment is a fascinating way of writing of a judgment. It is actually written like a Bollywood story. Okay, you please go through it. Why I'm saying this? They have written it like a story, like the background, who is the hero. I don't remember whether there was a heroine, but what was the climax and so on. And ultimately, this uh, whole case was that Reserve Bank of India had come out with a circular saying that banks which are licensed by Reserve Bank of India should not involve themselves in this Bitcoin transactions. They should not open accounts for exchanges. That was the administrative circular which the Reserve Bank of India had issued. Supreme Court said, no doubt you have the rights. They agreed that Reserve Bank has got the right to issue such kind of a circular, but they said that it was not proportionate to whatever problem you are talking of. It was actually a fraudulent way of argument of supporting the Bitcoin, but unfortunately it is something which our honorable Supreme Court has given, and with this Hawala was legalized, and since then Bitcoin value has gone up. Okay, because this, even some of the exchanges which had left India and moved to Singapore have come back and opened shops in India, because now the Supreme Court, by scrapping the RBI circular, automatically gave a validity to the Bitcoin exchanges. How can you have exchange validity if you don't recognize that the Bitcoin is valid? So automatically people think Bitcoin is valid, and even the government has now developed cold feet in coming with that particular regulation. Until this time, RBI was thinking of that this is not good for economy, but unfortunately Supreme Court has created a situation where everybody is hesitant to say that Bitcoin should be regulated. Okay, now very briefly I will also speak about the economic impact. One is, as I told you, if you are using Bitcoin like a plastic chip in a club or a casino as a limited currency, then it is fine. I have no objection. But when it is used for regular kind of activities, you are actually creating a digital black money and bringing it into circulation. Okay. Now, other parts of economics. Okay. Now, if you want to do mining, say mining is always legally okay, in the sense that if you are the miner, what you generate is an electronic document, and that doesn't have this past taint of any transaction through a criminal. So you can say that that is a clean document, and that clean document anybody can buy at whatever value they want. But to do this mining, see, originally Bitcoin was supposed to be mined by using an ordinary laptop and other things. When I first loaded that machine, it was working okay, but of course I was not able to mine anything, but still the software was able to be loaded onto this. But later on, the things became so difficult that processing power required to quickly complete the hashing process, people actually moved on to use of graphic cards instead of ordinary CPUs. Later on, now graphic cards are also superseded by dedicated machines, computer machines, which are called application specific integrated circuits, which is meant only to calculate the hash. Then if it is not meeting the requirement, go back, recalculate. It is like a brute force attack machine. Okay, they have created this. there are they are called miners, and they are available at various prices. There appears to be something very low at $120 also. It's available on Amazon, but the best of the miner is supposed to be worth around $3,000. So it may vary in accordance with the speed. Okay. Now that is you should use a special machine. You can call this as a special computer to do mining. But even if you use this particular equipment, which is called Antminer S9, which is supposed to be the best available in the market, it will take 548 days at peak performance, consuming 17,000 kilowatts of electricity to mine a single BTC, that is a Bitcoin. Other machines will take longer. Avalon 6 will take 2,194. So something like that. Okay, so different machines, you have to work for days together to be technically successful in creating a Bitcoin. But ideally, you should have this 5,000 of such machines working in a network to be successful in actually mining. So this has become more an industrial activity and not an individual activity. And the amount of heat this generates requires a huge cooling system. So this is not possible for any individual person or even a small scale industry. It is a massive data center operation to mine. Okay, if you do that in India, of course, somebody has calculated the cost of mining in India, taking the lowest electricity value at around rupees 3.2 per kilowatt hour, and they say that it will take about 20 months to break even if you want to mine a Bitcoin. So in this 20 months, you have to invest in this S9 machine and then keep on spending money on electricity. And then at the end of it, if you are lucky, you may get one Bitcoin. Now, if you look at the economic cost, okay, now currently the whole in the globe, Bitcoin is expected to be using 7 gigawatts of electricity, which is equal to 0.21% of the world's electricity supply. This is as much power as would be generated by 7 nuclear power plants. And the power consumption in a year for Bitcoin industry is equal to the power consumption of the entire country of Switzerland. This is the cost of energy. Whether we in India should not take a recognition of this is something which we need to do, think about. Now, even if people talk of environment, carbon footprint, electrical energy, electronic waste, this footprint of Bitcoin is something which is completely not compatible with our global objectives. Each transaction may leave an electronic waste footprint. So those of you who are interested, please go through these things. Many of the information is available on the web. So you can work on that. I have also told you about this 40 so market capitalization, how it compares with the Indian money supply, and why on that count alone the finance ministry should think of not regularizing the Bitcoin. So I would recall again the Cobra or the King Cobra. If you want to still work with Bitcoin, there is no doubt it is fascinating. You can do that. But my own view is that it is better we stay away from Bitcoin. Okay. So now we will have some more questions if you have. Okay. As I told you,
Good
this is
morning,
my
sir.
view. You can reject my view and have your own view. I have tried to give you the technology. I have given you the law. The rest of this is opinion, which you may take or discard. Okay. Yeah. Questions, please.
Good afternoon, sir. Anushri this side.
Yeah.
Sir, I just had a point to make, and in the light of the judgment that you were just quoting, so the impugned paragraph of the circular that RBI had notified said, and I quote, that the tech innovations, including those under VCs, have the virtual currencies, have the potential to improve efficiency and inclusiveness of the financial system. Now, if it has the potential, then why not let it build, sir, firstly? And then a follow-up that, sir, in this very paragraph, RBI has also mentioned that there are concerns with regard to the consumer protection, the market integrity, and money laundering, among others, other risks that virtual currencies might possess. So, but then, sir, all these risks are also present in our tangible currency as well. Even counterfeit currencies are affecting market integrity. And if I am quoting, if I may quote NCRB's data, which says that there has been a surge in the fake currencies from 2018 to 2019 of approximately 11.7 percentage, which is huge. And 2013 RBI took note of this fact for the first time, and it took 5 long years for RBI to entirely scrap down the system rather than to think of an analogy how to regulate it. So that didn't make much sense to me, also because the reasons that were quoted for pulling down this entire concept of cryptocurrencies was merely consumer protection, market integrity, and money laundering, or even if we say corruption and terrorism. But sir, this is already prevalent in the tangible currency system, and FATF has said that moving funds through the banking sector happens to be the most efficient way of moving funds for terrorist organizations. So your take on that, sir?
No, see, the question is traceability. See, crimes will happen. Now, what law can do is prescribe laws to punish a crime. But ultimately, we should be able to trace the crime. Now, the traceability is absent here, whereas traceability is present in the banking system. So, I'm not saying that crimes will not happen. Crimes will continue to happen. See, by that kind of a thing, crimes happen in many fields. So what we need to do is whether the system is amenable to law enforcement, or by its very design, it is an anti-law enforcement machinery. Now, Bitcoin or cryptocurrency is an anti-establishment machinery to create peer-to-peer currency and make it legit currency for the whole society. Now, if you say that in your college you want to create a cryptocurrency and make it usable within your college premises, that is fine. It doesn't affect the entire society. But when you say that that currency should become acceptable outside, or create a situation where everybody thinks it is a legit currency outside, then you are misrepresenting this limited currency of a club to be a currency of the Reserve Bank of India. Okay. So the logic that fake currency can happen, crimes can happen in physical currency, so therefore there is no need to control the Bitcoin, is something which you have to think yourself. See, if I have to pay you a bribe of 1 crore, now you tell me, how do I pay? I have to put it in some 10 suitcase and bring it to you. And there is a possibility of traceability in that. You have to keep it in your house. So if there is a raid, at least they will be able to find out. Now, where do I find out a Bitcoin holding? If I am an investigator, it may be either maybe in some kind of a chit or something like that. You might have hid it somewhere else, or you may even be capable of remembering the hash code of your Bitcoin wallet in your mind. Then nothing can be done. So traceability of this transaction is not there. That is why we call it as black money or digital black money. See, black money also, or Benami, you can say assets, they are assets. They are contributing to the economy. Now, a lot of people are working on Benami assets. It is also contributing to the economy, but government is losing out its revenue in some way. So likewise, digital black money in the form of Bitcoin has a potential to not only cheat the governments of revenue, but completely take this out of the radar of economy. So you just extrapolate the use of Bitcoins from the current level of 0.25% or something to 100%, then see whether there is any logic for a country. If you are the prime minister of the country, you are the RBI governor, will you be able to manage a situation where INR becomes freely convertible into Bitcoin? Both you and me would like to transfer it to Bitcoin because I don't want tax people to know how much money I have got. So therefore, if it is legitimized, then the physical currency in the legit form has a tendency to vanish and get converted into bitcoins, and that is not good for the economy, because in the banking system 100 rupees of deposit you keep there will create 85% rupees of loanable resources, and that 85 is going to get multiplied by the usage. So 100 rupees will actually generate a sort of an investable surplus of maybe 500 600 rupees. Now in the bitcoin, when you take it out, then you are actually suppressing the growth of economy to an extent that the country will actually get completely bankrupt. That is my view. You please ask your economics department to study this and create a report on that. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. I have told you this is like a king cobra, very fascinating. Okay, whoever has seen a king cobra in the movies, we all would like to embrace it. Okay, but can you do that? Is what you have to think. Okay.
Any other questions from anyone?
See, I am sure.
Okay. Papa,
I am
sir.
sure a number of you may even have a stock of bitcoins. Okay, and when I am talking about this, I know I am talking to people who have got interest in that, but I cannot still talk out of my conviction. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Papa, sir, I invite you to give a thank you note to sir. Papa, sir, I think he has left.
Yes,
Okay.
I am on the way.
Okay.
So it's very nice class. I have also one question to Sir. If Sir permits, I will ask one question.
Yeah, please.
Sir, if you permit
Yeah.
now, I will just ask you one question. It's not a question, clarification. Sir. Hello,
Yeah.
sir.
Go ahead.
Actually, in April 2018, the Supreme Court gave the verdict that the Bitcoin and the currency can be converted and all these things. Now it is almost all 2 years over. So when the economy is affected due to the Bitcoin and all these things, why the government is dragging on, what the government will get by suppressing this particular Bitcoin in continuation of this, in spite of the having so many disadvantages of Bitcoin, and it is a threat to the economy and all these things. You rightly said that, you justified also. I agree with you fully. So can the government will take any step in future according to your opinion? And you have already made a letter to the Prime Minister of India. Did you get any response from that letter from the Department of Prime Minister? Please, sir.
No, I have not so far got any response. I know that bureaucracy also will not be very keen, and my only hope is that there is one person in our country who can think of that. That's why I've written it to Mr. Modi and Amit Shah. Otherwise, I don't have any hope that any other politician will ever be interested in breaking it, because corruption is so strong. That's what you have to remember. In fact, this whole say Aadhaar issue came up because government wanted to link Aadhaar to the properties so that Benami property could be curtailed. See, denomination people were able to absorb. Benami property linking to Aadhaar was a big threat to the people who had black money, and that is why we had all the subsequent developments on Aadhaar being discredited. So this is even higher level of attack on corruption. So obviously there is so much of opposition. So I am only hoping against hope that somebody will listen to it, and that somebody has to be only one person in India who has got the power. No secretary will endorse that. Okay, very difficult. I was happy that RBI stuck to that because they were aware of the economic impact. But finance ministry has not been in favor of this. And in fact, the at one point of time, if you go through my website, you will see MCX, which is actually supported Bitcoin being traded as a commodity in the exchange. Okay, and they even put up a public comment with their letterhead in one of the government's call for public comments, this thing, which I vehemently opposed, and then they withdrew that from the public space, but copies are available on my site. So SEBI is in favor of it. Many people in the government are in favor of it. So it's a tough thing. So I still hope if there is a future for India, somebody will listen to it.
So thank you very much, sir. So morning, just I gone through an article. The article clearly says that is Bitcoin boon or ban? So you rightly said that it's a ban, not boon. So I agree with you completely because you justified your lecture according to your some of the pros and cons of the Bitcoin and all these things. So no doubt in it, sir, my students got benefited by your lecture. Because you made very clear analysis with regard to the Bitcoin and all these things. And you rightly pointed out so many dimensions of international perspective, also pros and cons and all these things. But in that article, when I read in the morning, he has given some sort of opening points I could not understand. So if you permit 1 minute, I will read that. So in this article, first he quoted that my father was taught by his teacher, India is a developing country. I was taught by my teacher, India is a developing country. My son is studying, India is a developing country. India will be developed country if dollar value and the rupee value meet at the same point. That is, the value of the rupee is equivalent to $1 of the 1 rupee is equivalent to $1. Sir, what does it mean? I don't understand by this particular opening remarks of that particular person who made this article, that is Bitcoin boon or ban in India? Please, can you throw some light for 1 minute, sir?
No, he is trying to say that the purchasing power of rupee has fallen as compared to dollar, and if you adopt a currency like Bitcoin, perhaps you will have a uniform currency. Only thing is, if you are having 1 lakh of rupees, you will get only that many Bitcoins, whereas 1 lakh of dollars, even today, you will get some different quantity. So this argument doesn't make any sense. But what he is telling is that India has not grown to the same extent as US. We know that for various reasons, Indian economy is not comparable to US economy, and that is reflected in the purchasing powers. But there is always something to quality of life. If you consider quality of life, you ask anybody who is working in USA, they will say that whatever I have to spend in rupees here, I have to spend in dollars there for my dosa or idli or something like that. So it doesn't make much difference. Only thing is, if he earns in USA and comes down to India and lives in Raipur, perhaps he may find that it is beneficial. So when two economies are mixed like that, some differences are there. Otherwise, in USA, how much, for example, you take petrol in Gulf may be cheaper than water. That is the difference which you have to live with, I think. So I don't see much value in that. There are a lot of promotional articles, PR articles, which come on Bitcoin every day, and you will see these things happening.